Hello, welcome to the Rooms with Ronald podcast, brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington. In 2023, I set an intention to shop 100 apartment communities to see how leasing was evolving around the country. Rooms with Ronald was born out of that experience. In this series, I share my experiences and engage in meaningful conversations with other professionals in the industry as we discuss all things related to leasing and marketing. Join in as we expand the Rooms with Ronald experiment. Hello and welcome back to another edition of Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington, and today I am joined by someone that I look up to, that I want to be when I grow up. I am joined by the fabulous Michelle Tate, who is the Chief Strategy Officer for Strategic Multifamily Consulting. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me today.
Ronald, it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
You know, I really do want to be when you grow up. You started out as a trainer, you kind of guided and shifted to this leasing extraordinaire. And I'm like, that's the journey I want to have. But talk to me, what does a Chief Strategy Officer look like? Like, what do they do?
That's a great question, Ronald. So the reason I call myself a Chief Strategy Officer is just, decades of experience on a national level. I've had the privilege of working with a multitude of companies that allowed me to travel through their portfolios and learn different product types and pockets and markets and people. And so I am taking that now and bundling it all up into a services package where essentially what I do is mostly I'm called in to turn the submarine around in the bathtub. So that's either something early in lease up that hasn't taken off on the right path, the right strategic path, and or an existing community that might have been stabilized and is somewhat falling out of grace, right? So somewhere between that 80 and 90 mark is usually where I get the call, and that can be the hardest part of recovery. So that is what I specialize in, and I have a traveling fleet that I've acquired that helps us get in there and do just that, turn it around, get stabilized, hand the playbook over to the team so that they have a sustainable plan to keep it going.
I love that. I mean, I've gotten those calls before in my life, right? It's like 78%, like, and they're like, can you come save the day? And I'm just like, guys, this didn't happen overnight. Unless you had a whole bunch of evictions, which I don't know that you're ready for someone to come in and lease those apartments just yet. And they're like, I remember one time someone said, I need you to go to Charleston, South Carolina. We have a lease up and we're 14 leases behind at this new build. And I need it done in 2 weeks. And I'm just like, let me pull some data real quick. I'm like, you realize that you haven't done 14 leases in 3 months combined. And they're like, I know, that's why we need you. So I'm like, okay. I'm like,
right.
Challenge accepted in the middle of February.
Yes.
I love that you call yourself a visionary architect of leasing talent and customer experience. What does that look like in practice as you're going around to these different teams and turning the submarine around? Like, what does that do in practice?
So how do I explain this, Ronald? I have a proprietary system that I do use that I apply out in communities, but every one of them has a little bit of a tweak. So they're curated by asset or by company based on what their journey looks like. The one thing that I find that most companies are not doing is focusing on the customer journey through the customer's lens. We're constantly calling it the customer journey, but mapping it out in a pattern of ease for our teams, but we're not thinking about how wonky it is for our client. Now, let's just take that down to an emotional or psychological level with them. Our journey should not follow our willingness and courage pattern for follow-up, as an example. It needs to be in sync with the customer's decision-making process. So if they come to her today, they go to sleep tonight, they wake up tomorrow morning, we've lost 94% of our opportunity. And one might argue, but they're coming Saturday to apply. But they've already made their decision, right? So why are we waiting 24 hours to follow up? That is one of the things my team will not do, is wait 24 hours to follow up. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense because, like, if you think about it, I love like, well, they're going to come on Saturday. Are they, or did they just tell you that? Right. And what
Right.
are you doing to like kind of keep that in play? And I think follow up is one of the biggest missed opportunities in multifamily across, everything, because we do rely so heavily on AI to do this follow up. But I'm like a firm believer that if I've interacted with the person in any way, shape, or form, I need to own that follow up because I know what their emotional level is. I know what makes them tick. Like I've had that, so I can make these little personalizations that could put them over the edge that to lean towards me without having to offer 2 months free or things like that.
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
How does someone build a leasing culture that consistently performs? I feel like, we think we're building these amazing teams, but then we're not seeing the results.
Yep. Culture takes a lot of effort. And many clients, many companies I've worked for, and even I've been in the shoes where I assume that culture was there because of the hire and the connection during the interview, because they're smiling when I show up at the community. And that's not really what's driving the culture. What drives the culture is a lot of connection and communication. And that becomes harder and harder, especially with portfolios where we don't have sister properties in our backyard. And fortunately, we have platforms like the one that we're on right now, Ronald. There's no reason why we can't stay connected. We don't have to have 1 hour meetings, but something I'm a firm believer in that really drove culture at the past few companies that I have had the honor again to work with are 15-minute huddles in the morning every day. Everyone shows up, everyone's on screen, everyone hits a topic. There's a gamified component to it. There's a rah-rah motivation component to it. And there's knowledge takeaway that is a real life skill that I can use today to convert more, perform more, and impact my bottom line, right? Not just the company, but for the leasing team and the service team out on site. And then that's the other little caveat I'm going to throw in there. We do this often for the leasing team or the on-site teams, and we do not bring our service teams into the mix. They're better salespeople than we are. Why do we
Hmm.
not have them in the room when we're having these huddles? To me, that's the ultimate culture is everyone getting together every day and supporting one another, being there for one another, having fun, laughing, getting the endorphins rolling. That's just one example, but take the 15
Yeah.
minutes. It's 15 minutes. We can do this.
And I feel like too, though, in most communities, there is some sort of morning huddle, right? And
Mhm.
I've always seen it where kind of the leasing isn't, I mean, they're in the meeting, but they're not at the table, essentially, right? So there's, we went around a room, we talked about delinquency. What's our delinquency at? We talked about did any emergency work orders come in last night? And then how many work orders do we have outstanding? And then any, owner visits, anything like that we need to be. And then we dismissed the meeting. And I'm like, you're not going to talk about the bread and butter. Like you're not
Yep.
going to talk about who's booked a tour today. Do we know what we're showing? Are you not talking about the tours from yesterday? How did they went? And I think that
Yep.
kind of helps, that. And I think that also helps maintenance know because if I know I've talked to someone and they're coming to tour today and I'm like, yeah, Michelle's coming to tour. I do know at her previous community, she had a lot of maintenance issues. So, Paul, could you be it, around at 2:30 for this tour, right? Maybe
Yep.
we're going to go see this apartment, kind of be over there so I can make that introduction to personalize it. So you can put Michelle at ease that she knows the person who's going to take care of them. And I've always said like, we forget about maintenance when it comes to the sales process. It was one thing that I
Yeah.
was very passionate about this year at Apartmentalizes. I spoke with Paul Rhodes and we did soft skills and maintenance and why you should teach people those soft skills, how to lease an apartment or not how to lease,
Mhm.
but how to talk about when the renewal rent is going up 25%.
Yep.
They need to have some knowledge of that saying instead of saying, go talk to Ronald in the office.
Mhm. Absolutely. Our maintenance team, they are our greatest asset at the community. They have the intel, the residents are willing to communicate with them. They really have the bench strength to get out there and have the difficult conversations with our residents. And I think we need to leverage them and treat them
Yeah.
with,
And they're
with
also
way
the
more
ones that are fixing
respect.
things like,
Hmm.
yeah. How many times have you been in the office and taken the phone call from the angry resident who's like cussing you out and you're like, let me get maintenance. You call maintenance and you're like, they're really irate. Maintenance goes spits and they come back to the office and they're like,
I don't know what you're talking about, because they were as calm as could be once I got there
Hmm.
and like fixed it. And I'm like, yeah, because you're the
Right,
fixing the thing. And so I'm like, we have
right.
to do better about incorporating them into the process.
Yep, 100%.
So
Ronald, if
we
I
know
can, I'm
kind of like
sorry, I'm
these
gonna
subtle.
geek out on this culture thing with just one more time because,
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
lot of companies are concerned about having the time to do things like this, even if it's 3 times a week, and I s you can do it. We can do this. Your teams deserve it. You're gonna get so much more out of them, and even when things happen, I'm on an airplane, Ronald, every week. I've had a
Yep.
few mishaps where it's time for huddle, and I was the host that morning, and here I'm in an airplane. Be creative. We're in a creative society. I will tell you this happened to me about 60 days ago, and I'm mid-flight, and I can't be on screen, so we used Teams, a Teams chat to have a silent huddle, kind of like a silent disco. It was
Yep.
super fun, and it was actually more engaging. Everyone engaged more on the silent huddle than they did the on-screen huddle. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my morning motivator for everyone today is you can do it, and it's fun,
Yeah.
and
There's
you'll impress yourself.
there's so many different ways. There's so many different ways to do it, and so many different ways for people to take ownership in those kinds of things. So you get to a property or you're working with a new lease up. What are the first three things you are going to go evaluate to understand what's working or what's not working, what's broken?
That's interesting. I don't know that there are 3. My mind doesn't work that way anymore. I'm gonna see, like, 30. Um, but I will tell you the most how about I'll respond to that with, the most common challenges when I'm called into a community are sometimes the simplest and most astonishing to me. Number 1, there's signage, but the signage is so branded, it's invisible. It's
Hmm.
absolutely eclipsed and invisible. If it's that on par with the building and the landscape, I don't see it. So we need
Right.
to consider signage as a means of visibility and awareness. And also, just because it looks good on screen doesn't mean I can read it at 60 miles per hour, 4 lanes away. Right. So
Right.
it's time to get back to basics and to have the signage experts tell us what needs to be on the sign instead of including pictures of the kitchen. So that's my first
Yeah.
pet peeve is
Yeah.
on my way in. Can I find the community? Is the signage visible? And then how I'm greeted when I walk in. And I know those sound like basics, but those 3 things usually are a major point of entropy in conversion, whether the team is doing a great job or not. Can people actually get to us?
Yep.
And Google Pins,
I
Ronald, Google Pins. I have found them almost 2 miles away from the
yeah.
from the entrance.
Or my favorite is like when I go shop like a mid-rise or a high-rise and I can't figure out the parking situation, and
Mhm.
like where do you like the entryway isn't labeled well, and then I'm like, no one's
Yeah,
called to tell me that there's a garage around the corner tucked in, like, and you can get in it. And I'm just like, these are the little things. I shopped one property once in Cincinnati during a Reds game. Like, it was a home Reds game. I did not know the property literally was within proximity of the stadium. And
uh-huh,
so, like, I tried to go find it and I'm like, where do I park? There's nowhere. And Reds Village is overflowing into this community. And I'm like, okay, so like I essentially paid $20 to park because it was like stadium pricing somewhere. And I walked and the lady was like, oh, I'm so glad you showed up. I didn't think you would show up today with what
right.
was going on. And I'm like, could you
Oh
have
my
called
gosh.
and, like, gave me a heads up?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
maybe you wanna change your tour time to instead of being at 10 AM, the game starts at 11, maybe you wanna come in at 12, right? And those
Yeah.
different things, and it was, like, astonished to me. Or the property that I recently shopped that had, um, summer savings covering the monument sign, so I couldn't even, like, and it was, like, tucked away, and I was just like, "It's past summer, you're not offering that special anymore, but you are because you're advertising it on the street."
Right,
It was a fiasco.
right. Right. Sometimes it's the simple things. It really is the simple things because genuinely people are most of us out there are hiring nice people. Even if they're not using strategy, if everything is organized and the signs are what they should be and people can find us and we have nice people that are attentive when a prospect gets there, you can convert more. Not at max
Yeah.
capacity without the full strategy, but there's
If you do,
definitely loss in conversion when you don't have some of those simple basics in place up front.
yeah. Yeah. Which brings me to kind of like, you have found a lot of great talent. You have this team kind of traveling around with you now. So when you're hiring, what qualities do you look for that are going to predict leasing success?
Grit.
Great.
That's number one. So smiling and grit. I want to meet someone who's, I'm a Philly girl. Gritty is our mascot.
Yeah.
So it's one of my favorite words to use, to pull it out from Philadelphia, but someone who doesn't take no for an answer. Someone who is going for the goal, someone who's hungry, someone who is willing to take a lower base because there's a higher payout if they achieve more. I'm looking for that in someone. I'm looking for someone who asks, can I work, can I work extra hours? If someone wants to come in at 7:30, is it okay if I take that tour? I'm looking for someone who's asking me those questions rather than 10 minutes of PTO questions. Now, PTO is very
Right.
important, so I don't want to downplay that. I want them to take their time and I want them to, rest, relax, rejuvenate, but I really want someone on it and in it to win it. So there are some great questions, and I've had some formalized training in interview questions and the types of questions to ask and to evaluate propensity to perform based on the response.
I love that.
So I use some of that methodology. Hmm.
I think like in multifamily, we're so rigid when it comes to like the standard, right? Like the office is going to be open 9 to 6. And I'm
Hmm.
like, why are we always doing what's best for us, right? Like as individuals,
Yeah.
most people who are renting an apartment work 9 to 6. When
Hmm.
are they going to come to work? So now you're making them come on their lunch hour, which means they're probably hangry when they get there,
Yeah.
or they're taking PTO, which they would much rather be on the beach somewhere, or
Right.
doing something else because that's what's convenient for you. And then you hear the whole, well, that's why we set up self-guided tours. I'm like, not every person wants to take a self-guided tour. And
Right.
then are you following up with the self-guided tours? Because in my experience, you aren't. Like, so finding that, and I think we could find better talent if we allow that flexibility, right? Like someone who wants to work 12 to 8.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, great. Guess what happens? Now I can get better follow-ups done. Like I can take care of residents. My resident events can actually be, useful to residents who aren't scrambling to come home.
Yep.
I'm not having to worry about comp time later in the week because, you had to work till 8 o'clock on this resident. There's so many different things that could be so much better for us as a
Yeah.
community, as us as a company, if we were just a little bit more flexible.
Right. We're forcing our teams to work in, what I like to call banker's hours zones. Right? And
Yeah.
that's when everyone is working, to your point. If we had more of a realtor mentality and made ourselves available when the client was available, we would have more tours. So for those in the
Yep.
industry that do not want to follow the movement towards self-guided tours, which I am a very big fan of, I think that they are necessary in today's environment. But if you're not, you need to rethink your office hours. You really, this is
Yep.
again one of those considerations, Ronald. Are we thinking about ourselves or are we thinking about the customer and what the customer really needs? Is the customer coming in at one who's taking PTO and having to work overtime tonight? Are they really indecisive about leasing the apartment or are they stressed out because of the situation we put them in? Where if they came in at 6:30, they probably would have been calm, relieved, thankful, filled with gratitude,
Mhm.
and filling out the application in front of you.
Yeah.
It's a better climate, it's a better environment.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
always get asked that too. Like when I was in that Charleston from earlier, like those 14 leases, I got it because I was in the CRM at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night because
Mhm.
I'm a traveler, right? So I'm at the hotel. What else is there to do? And I'm like just answering questions. I'm having live text conversations back and forth with them to get them to close the deal. So, there was
Yep.
a chatbot, absolutely, but I'm talking to them as a human and I'm like, hey, I'll meet you at the property right now, right? Those kinds of things. And even just to offer that, a lot of them would say, wow, You
Hmm.
don't need to meet me at I'll go ahead and apply now, right? Because
Right.
they knew like you're meeting me on my terms and those kinds of things. And I had recorded a lot of videos. I'm a huge video proponent, and like I'm like I can send you a quick video that I made. It's not a professional video. I shot it on my iPhone. It's, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So you can at least get a feel for it. And sometimes that's all it takes.
That's all it takes. I'm so glad that you said that, Ronald, because I think that there's definitely an ideology out there that a video tour, a pre-recorded video tour, needs to be professionally made. I'm not going to argue that point. I think if it's going to be on the website, if it's a staple, it should be a professionally recorded video. If you and I are having a conversation right now and you're interested in 111, and I'm going to run over there and record it for you real quick, it should look like I just recorded it for you. I
Hmm.
want you to
Yep.
catch all the vibes and the feels that I ran for you. I'm taking care of you. I'm going to take care of you when you move in. So you don't want to send, Blair Witch Project video over. But if it feels a little personal, home video esque, to me, that has more value in a conversation than sending something pre recorded.
Yeah. Well, it looks like you took the lazy way out. Like here's the video, right? I'm just like, I like to have fun with it. I'll put myself in the video. Like, hey, like
Yeah.
I'll start it out. Like, I also grew up on the generation of MTV Cribs, right? Where
Yeah.
like you had the celebrity. Like that's when I do my tours. Like that's the mindset I go into, and then I
Hmm.
even take it further. And I think sending a personalized video follow up goes a lot further than just a generic email because it's different.
100%. My former team, that was a requirement with them. We had a platform that was just tremendous. My favorite industry platform, as a matter of fact, where we streamed live video instantaneously. Just, okay, you walk out the door, I record a thank you, and boom, text, email,
Okay.
it's right there.
Yeah.
Especially,
I
though, here's a little tip for all of my leasing friends out there. Pre-tour has even more value. Have them
Absolutely.
get to know you, see you, and pick up on your energy more than just through the phone and through a chat. If they can see you and experience you before they get there, that then turns their first visit into what feels like a second visit, a be back, a return visit. And it's the
Yeah.
return visit that you have a higher chance, 75% chance of closing, accepting the application from them. So why would you not preload your tour with a little experience with you prior to their arrival? That's a
Yeah,
little
I
nugget
think, like
that our lease up specialists will utilize.
I think the more that they can see you and realize that you're not a bot, I feel like people are kind of overwhelmed by bots. They just assume that everything is a bot. And
Hmm.
so, like, one of the first things I look at, like, before I even go tour properties now is like, what's the interaction before I get there? If it's all AI and there's no human piece, I'm like, this is not going to be a great tour. They're going to fumble the
Yeah.
handoff. It's going to be a thing. But I've noticed recently, a couple of the properties I toured, like even when the leasing agents in it, they had their photo and their signature line. So I saw them, and I think about like outside of the industry when I was trying to replace a windshield. SafeLight did that. They had a video,
Yeah.
so when I knew who the tech was going to look like when they came to my house because it was this weird like they're doing it in your house,
Yes.
and then like even at car dealerships they've done like, hey, I'm your car's person who will be helping you buy this car, or you take it in and they show you the video of underneath the car. Here's what we're doing before we fixed it. Here's the after. So you could build that trust with
Hmm.
that person.
Yep. It's interesting, Ronald. I'll give you another little tip. So back to some of the questions that I'll ask an agent. I'm usually 15 minutes in, and I know whether or not we're going to move forward. And sometimes I'll end it right there if it's not, because in a kind way, of course. But one of
Yeah.
my questions is, how willing are you to photograph and video record yourself actively every day, every day? And most people will say, "Oh, yes, of course, of course." Ask
And then
them
they get there
to send
and
you a
then they're like,
video. Tell them you'd like to see a thank you video as their response after this interview is complete. And as far as I'm concerned, the swiftness of receipt tells me that they're the right person for our team. Or did they have to go print for 20 minutes? Did they record it 6 times? I'm really looking for somebody who knows how to keep moving and pivoting without being overly self-conscious and concerned.
Hmm.
Just
Yeah,
get
which
over
is
yourself. Go. They're going to see you as you are right now anyway. Stop doctoring up the video. Just send it. Just go.
that is like when I started this podcast was my number one thing. Like I was like, I don't want like editing. Like if I mess up, I have to recover, right? And that's okay. And that's what makes it authentic. And that's what like, and it took a long time for me to understand like that authentic, like what that meant. Everyone's like, you're just so authentic. And I'm like, how can you not be? But then I
Yeah.
realized I talked to them, they're like, you just sit down, you hit record, and you're having a conversation with someone. There's not a lot of like this
Mhm.
overproduction and things like that. Or you'll do a webinar and you're like in the middle of it, someone else is talking, you're like, I have to get something to drink. Like most people wouldn't show that part on camera. And you're like, let me just grab
Yeah.
my coffee mug. And I'm like, because that's real life. That's what people want.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah,
Let's
include
talk
it in the
about,
conversation as if you're at the counter together. And do you
yeah,
like coffee? We'll have another cup when you get here this afternoon. Let me know what flavor you like.
yeah,
I'll have it teed up and ready for you.
absolutely. That's my love language is coffee. Let's talk about the modern leasing playbook because it has changed a lot. And I
It has.
mean, and quickly, right? Like for a long time, it was very southern, but now we have like all this technology. We have AI, we have CRNs. They've kind of changed how we work a little bit. So, what tools or systems do you think are truly moving the needle? And how can teams use them without losing that kind of personal touch?
Hmm. So, why don't we talk self-guided tours for a minute then? Use that
Yeah.
as a catalyst or a base. I know that it is, godsend for a lot of us, and a lot of people are still naysayers and trying to avoid it. I've even seen teams try to sabotage the self-guided touring platforms,
Yep.
which boggles my mind. I'd do anything to have two of me, which is what you have when you have a self-guided tour platform on your community.
Right.
You can take 2 tours at a time, 3 tours at a time if you're working the system. So to answer your question, what do? We do what we've always done. Be a human being, be a kind person, insert yourself into the lives of the prospects that are engaging your community in the way that they would like. It's not so black and white and cut and dry. Someone who takes a self-guided tour doesn't mean that they never want to talk to you. Just the same as
They
we
want it to on their own
assume that
time.
everyone wants to meet you, right?
Right.
So how we do it, I think, is essential. And to me, it's a lot of, again, front loading. I'd probably send a video of myself prior to their tour, just that if you see me on the property, I hope you enjoy your sneak peek. Take all the time that you'd like. Just wanted you to know who I was. So if you have questions when you're done, please come see me at the Leasing Center. Something as simple as
Yeah.
that. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. How about
No.
texting someone during their tour? You know that they're there. It's on your calendar. Just shooting them
It's
a little
also a good
text.
check in to make sure that they made it in.
Yeah. Did you get in? Do you have everything you need? Perfect. We're here if you need us. Stop by
Yeah.
and see me and grab a beverage on the way out.
Absolutely. Or it's something too, like, giving them the quick, like, overview of what the self-guided tour is going to look like, right? Because you go to these
Mhm.
properties and they get confusing real quickly, right? Like hallways all look the same. Like, so
Yeah.
like I toured one, I did a self-guided tour a couple years ago and I got lost on the property because the signage was self-guided tour and they had arrows pointing both directions with no other thing. So I was like, I'm like looking around and like the centralized leasing agent called me and was just like, hey, did you find the unit? I'm like, I am so lost.
Yeah.
Like, and he was like, okay, what building? And he like walked me through to the unit, but like a quick video got like a lot of times in my experience, the self-guided tours are of model units or things like that are pretty stationary. So you could just
Hmm.
go do a quick thing, speed it up a little bit. So when people go and say, hey, here's the video of the tour paths you're going to see. I just want you to have it in case, you're like me and you're directionally challenged. I put it always
Hmm.
back on me. It's there for you. I'm also going to be here as a resource, but it helps when you're doing it after hours and someone may not be there. Like, here's that
Right.
resource for you.
100%. Yeah. Those things. And if it's not a person because you don't have the manpower, use of QR codes and preloaded videos in those spaces is amazing. Why not have a
Yep.
QR code? up in the kitchen, where I
Yeah.
click on it and it takes me to a video of you demonstrating the kitchen as if you were there with me. What if
Yeah.
you constantly had the objection or the question, does a king size bed fit? This is going to sound throwback old school, but Ronald, anytime you can make it interactive, it doesn't have to be all digital.
Right.
I had one particular case where this was a common question, and we took a cutout of the size of a king size bed and folded it up into a drawer. Um, and the QR code was, hey, trying to place a king size bed, click, and it walked you through where it was and to go and throw it out on the floor and see where you would place your bed. And I know that sounds crazy, but it was a quick
No.
fix and it worked. It
Yeah.
worked.
I used to do tape measures. Like I used to have a tape measure.
Yeah.
I used to put Alexas into my models because there was internet. And so I would put little questions that would prompt them to say, because you can add a skill to Alexa, you know? So like
Yes.
I would say, hey, Alexa, does a king size bed fit in this room? And she would be programmed to say, yes, it does, you know, it, well, wherever, right? And then always the last question on the back of the door they're leaving was say, hey, Alexa, where should I apply at?
Yep.
And then it would say, you should apply here, right? Like it's this little technology that people remember. I can't tell how many people come in and be like, Ronald, you
Yep.
had an Alexa. It talked to me. Like, I'm like, yeah,
Right.
but it was those questions that you don't get to ask, you know, what are the utilities? She can
Yep.
like spill it out on those self-guided tours. It's those little touch points that kind of make life easier for that prospect.
Yep. Yep. And Alexa makes phone calls too. So how about Alexa call Ronald?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it simple on them. M- Many leasing consultants hesitate when it's time to ask for the lease, right? We've all been there, right? You have a great tour or not a great tour. And then at the end of it, it's like, okay, well, have a great day. So
Hmm.
what is your go-to advice for turning that fear of close into the confidence? Because I honestly think that not asking for the close is a lack of confidence. They're
Hmm.
just not confident enough to do it. So what's your go-to advice to someone who's struggling?
So this is an interesting question. This is probably going to be surprising to you and to a lot of people. I was the shyest person in my class all the way through high school. Not until mid college did I start to break out of my shell, and it was this industry that did it for me. Um, so earlier on in my career, I would stage and set up my conversations in a way that if someone were to do this, how what would make me receptive to it? If I met a car salesman and went home, what would make me receptive to answering his call 15 minutes later without being annoyed that the salesperson is calling me? And when I started building, that's how I build out a lot of my methods for sales. So I would say if you're getting to the point of close and you're feeling nervous about it, you didn't tee yourself up properly. What do you need to
Yes.
do? The fail or the challenge was somewhere at the beginning and the middle of the tour. It's not confidence in the moment. That's your gut instinct, and if your gut instinct is saying something doesn't feel right, how do I fix that next time? But then also, if I get there because I have someone who's not super engaging with me, what do I do? What closing skill do I want to pull out of my toolkit if I just couldn't get them there? And so I believe in a trifecta of closing. I have three baseline skills that I advise teams to use. And I'll share one of them that is my favorite prior to the team close, which is feel, felt, found. I know it's so old school and cliche, but I share this with sharing this with anyone who's watching and you've ever been at that point of nervousness or you're still trying to brush up on your closing skills. The beauty in feel, felt, found is that it takes you and me out of the equation. So if I'm the
Yep.
salesperson talking to you, Ronald, I'm poking at you. I'm like, Ronald, I want you to lease this apartment. Are you going to lease this apartment? Are you ready to apply today? And I'm telling you what I think. I'm asking you what you think. It's you and me in this heated battle. Are you going to lease this apartment today? If that's not
Absolutely.
working, feel, felt, found says, you know what? Oh gosh, Ronald, I totally understand how you feel. Guess what? I had a resident last week. They're a resident now who felt the same exact way. But as soon as they made their decision and voila, they are happy as could be. And look, here's their 5-star review. So now we're talking about somebody over there. It's taking the pressure out of the equation. That would be my biggest nugget that I'd throw out there is to pull that one out and dust it off. Use it.
Yep.
in your finale of closes?
I was sitting in a leasing training for a friend of mine, and she actually uses that method in her. That's the only thing she teaches, like during this like 2 hour session. But what I really appreciate is she actually had us do it in Chat GPT.
Uh-huh.
Give the objection and say use the feel felt found method and
Uh-huh.
like see what it comes up with.
Yep.
And the people were just kind of like, this is amazing. And I'm like, yes.
Yes, it
Like,
is.
it's a tool that could help you.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Ronald, it's
what is
crazy.
one
I know that
thing?
you probably know this, but there are 26 closing styles. But the average leasing professional only uses 2. And it usually, there's a reason why we say 3. There wasn't someone in corporate who made up the 3 rule. The reason that we say 3 is you need to ask 3 times, but not the same way, 3 different
Right.
ways, because you might ask and it doesn't translate. Ask a different way, it doesn't translate. And the 3rd time it does. So really important that we're learning how to migrate around that pool of closes. Anyway, geeking out on
Yeah.
closing. Thank you, Ronald.
I love it. We're almost out of time here, but I just have a couple questions left.
Sure.
Rapid fire.
Yeah.
What is one thing leasing leaders should start doing right now?
Right now, they should post leaderboards, and they should start celebrating those leaders, like recognizing them daily in a
Love
positive
that.
way. Positive reinforcement, positive accountability.
Yeah. What's one thing that they should stop doing?
Focusing on the bottom of the leaderboard, focusing on communities that are not functioning, because the more time you spend at the low end of the watch list, the more opportunity there is at the top end of those performers to get pulled out of the equation. It's like a Jenga
Yep.
exercise. If someone's going to come and take them and steal them away because you're not paying any attention, they need just as
I
much
love
attention.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. And my last one is always a fun one. What is your leasing superpower?
My leasing superpower. Oh, that's a good question, Ronald. I don't know how to answer that. I would say one of my leasing superpowers is that I don't take I don't take no for an answer. I'm going to keep pushing. And I would say the sub component to that is my love language is doing something special that is curated for each individual that I meet. I want every single person that I meet to feel that connection and that I understand and know who they are and delight them in some way. So if it means something as small as we were giggling about M&Ms and my follow-up video is me lining M&Ms up to the apartment door and taking a snapshot, trying to lure them back in, what can I do to curate that experience for them? I'd say that's my superpower. And that is people have mentioned it to me in person as part of the reason they came back.
I love that. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me. I mean, we could continue this conversation on for hours,
Yeah.
but thank you for making time and coming on to Rooms with Ronald with me.
My pleasure. This was so fun. Thank you so much, Ronald.
And listeners, you have been listening to Rooms with Ronald. I have been joined by, like I said earlier, who I want to be when I grow up, Michelle Tate, who is the Chief Strategy Officer for Strategic Multifamily Consulting. Until next time, guys, happy leasing.
Happy leasing.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope I left you with some fresh ideas or a new perspective. Leasing and marketing are evolving rapidly, and Rooms with Ronald is committed to offering a place to hear about those changes. We also celebrate and acknowledge the fundamentals of exceptional service that will never go out of style. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, or subscribe. Visit MultifamilyMediaNetwork.com to learn more about our other exceptional industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities.